Hey, this is the Daily Overpass. My name is Eric and I make apps. Now today, I want to talk a little bit about the value of getting an AdMob consultation. Alright, so this morning I had a meeting with someone from AdMob, like a consultation. So every so often, you might get this as well, or you may have had these kind of consultations before, where they'll send through an email saying, would you like a consultation from AdMob to increase your monetization and all that kind of stuff, right? And then you fill in a Google form and you get organize a slot of like 30 to 40 minutes to speak with one of the representatives. And it's all about your ad placements, your apps, your ad revenue, all that kind of stuff, right? And it's hugely useful, right? So if you ever get one of those emails, or if you get, maybe you can even contact them and see if you can set it up, right? If you want to increase your revenue, I found these meetings, these consultations to be really useful. The first time I had one was like 3 or 4 years ago, when my big app EarSpy was getting more and more downloads. It was starting to pick up some traction, and it was serving more ads, and revenue was going up, and I was pretty happy with it. But it wasn't like I wasn't making enough to live off of, right? I wasn't, it was doing okay. It was, it was like a nice little side income, right? So when I spoke to the AdMob person there, he goes, no, I downloaded your app and I opened it, and you should be using interstitial ads, right? And I was actually kind of offended, because I thought, I am using interstitial ads. Yeah, I know how to use interstitial ads. Of course I'm using interstitial ads. I said, no, I am using interstitial ads, but it'll only show up once every 4 opens. So if you open the app like 4 times, on the 4th time you'll see the interstitial ad, and then it'll open it up another 4, and then you'll see that, because I don't want to annoy users too much. I don't want to make them angry or whatever. And he said, well, most of the developers I talk to serve ads on every session, right? The interstitial ads, at least once on every session, right? And and just knowing that other developers did that, I changed it up and I started serving it on every session. And I didn't hear a lot of complaints. I mean, there's some people complain in the reviews and stuff, but not most people. They expect ads, right? And just doing that, the revenue skyrocketed, and it was like all of a sudden, and my whole way of thinking about all the apps changed just based on that one conversation and some of the other things we talked about, right? And then all of a sudden, that ad revenue became a real beast, and it was really great. So when I got an email, actually it was just yesterday I got the email saying, would you like to, being invited to, have a consultation, and then immediately I was like, yes, let's do that. So I had this morning, and I spoke with a woman from AdMob today. I won't say the name because I didn't ask if I could talk about who she was. So, but she basically, my big concern at the moment, which I told her, was that the ad revenue is lower. The impressions are still there, but the RPM is a lot lower. And she asked for how long it was, and I said it was a few months. I mean, we're like 2/3 of where we were a few months ago, so it really is such a downer, right? It's just, because you don't really have a lot of control over it, right? She said, well, we have noticed that from about the 2nd week in July, that eCPMs from the advertisers have actually dropped by about 30%. So but they expect it to pick up again in September when more ad campaigns kick off. So that was like music to my ears, right? Because one thing I've been doing over the last few weeks is setting up, I've been trying a few other ad networks. I've been trying to put more things through AppLovin, play around with mediation eCPM floors. Also, trying Start App is one that I'm starting, but I haven't really fully committed to that one yet. And I'll talk about that in a future one, but I'm just really only sent on one of my smaller apps, sending ads through there just to test it out before I go full in, right? But it was really good to hear about that. Also, we talked about stuff like the native Express ads, and then they got the new ones coming out called Native Advanced, I think, where you have a lot more control over them. And to be honest with you, I have never used native ads, right? It's one of these things where people who have used them talk about how great they are. I just haven't. I haven't really done it yet. And then also we talked about rewarded ads, because one thing I am using is rewarded ads a lot. I was using them through AppLovin before, like last year, and then earlier this year I switched over to AdMob rewarded ads. But my RPM on that is actually pretty low. So it's you know, she was kind of surprised by that because usually they're pretty high. My interstitials are actually doing pretty well, but it's probably, you know, I probably need to think about placing them some other places and everything, because I have made a big change there. But really, it's the RPMs as being low, and they're going to come up. So anyway, my message today, because I know I'm just sort of filling you in on what happened today, just really good news about the you know, the eCPMs being low. By the way, one of the things you have to think about as a when you do the advertising, if you're making money through that, it's really, I know I've talked about this before, it's really beneficial to set up some of your own ads and put some ads out there, even though it costs you a little bit of money, just so you can see what the process is like. Because otherwise, you just, you know, I'm just going to hook this thing up, and then the ads come through and I just make money, and then when it stops coming through, you don't know what's going on because you don't understand how the whole thing works. You don't understand how RPMs work because you don't know the two different ways that you can be paid based on, you know, by pay per click or pay per impressions, you know, the number of impressions. There's all these kind of things that go into the calculation. Even though you don't know the calculations, if you set those kind of things up, you have a more holistic view of how it works. Anyway, different topic, but if you do get this email from AdMob, or maybe you can even contact them and set something up. I mean, there are people out there who are willing to help, and you know, it's really useful because they talk to lots of different developers. A lot of them might have more impressions than you. They might have, you know, they might be bigger players, you know, but you can't be that much bigger than, you know, you can't be that much smaller than me, to be honest with you. So it's, you know, it was really good to do that. And so look, you know, if you get that email, definitely respond to it, you know, and sometimes it goes to spam, so you have to check for that. I think I've had about, you know, about 3 or 4 in the last few years, so it's and I always take it. Anyway, that's it for today. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.